All right, guys, Blitz World Series action coming at you here in the Pro Division. We're in the semifinals. The semifinals coming at you here. We got Kwos, the death robot, the man himself in yellow. On the left here out of Jordan, we got Marko, the GOAT, a.k.a. the final boss, a.k.a. the man to beat, a.k.a. the scariest Blitz player alive right now. In red out of Finland on the right here. So yeah, should be a pretty good one here. Kwos is obviously a tough player. You know, we've seen him month after month kind of be in this Final Four division, but Marko certainly proving himself. Actually have the so these are our last 5 Blitz winners here. You can see Marko basically wins every other month, right? Kian's put one up, Laptop's put one up in the last 5, but ultimately Marko has 3 of the last 5 Blitz titles, which is, you know, obviously a very, very scary thing. And of course, Kwos not with a final finish, but yeah, like I said, he's in the Final Four pretty much every month. He puts up points against these guys. He's had some really, really close matches. So we'll see if this is the month that he can finally take it home. Now, if you guys missed the action yesterday, we had Latov versus Kian. Kian winning that game. So Kian will be in the championship tomorrow. That's at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. And he'll be facing off with the winner of this game. The losers of these games, so Latov playing the loser of this one, will be coming at you guys for the 3rd place game here on Saturday as well. Of course, if you're enjoying the content, you're having fun, I got to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, share. Help me get the content in front of more people. If you drop a comment, let me know what country you're enjoying this from on YouTube. That helps the YouTube algorithm. We get this video in front of more people. Slowly, we get our A to the moon. I appreciate both these guys not doing anything too fun while I drop all that info on you. Let's see what we got going on. Both players focusing on the top half of the map. So we've seen most players do so far on this, just kind of edge towards that top side. With that being said, Kwos does open up production on the bottom side with a War Factory on the bottom now. And okay, Marko massing dog, so a bit of a fodder advantage. Doesn't look like doesn't look quite comfortable enough to push in here. Oh, as I say that, here comes Marko. 2 flat cannons for Kwos, and very, very questionable. 2 flat cannons. 1 flat cannon I think is questionable against Soviet. I think there's an argument to be made that, well, I don't know. I mean, Marko's doing it as well. It does seem like a lot of the top level guys are putting out that flat cannon early. It does slow you down. Takes power, takes money. But the one eagle chipping away over and over, apparently it's just too much of an issue, and we have seen that just slowly pick apart an army early game especially. So they 1 flat cannon, but Kwos going 2 flat cannons seems a little crazy to me. It's 2,000 credits. It's a lot of power. So we did sell one off, but you saw him struggling for a little bit there on his economy. Both players on very, very similar builds here, but because of that double flat cannon, ultimately, I think that's why we're seeing Kwos fall behind here. Marko on 4 War Factories and now on radar. So Marko massively ahead on the back end, the macro in this position. His building just way ahead on War Factories. Nice economy behind him and a radar. Very, very strong on this position. Neither player, as I say that, Marko going to switch down to the bottom side now. He knows he has the tanks for it. He wants to go bottom side, put some pressure on. Desolators on the top side to try to slow things down. We'll see if Marko can try to get some value here on the bottom. He's going to switch his primary War Factory to the bottom as well. Yeah, so Marko continuing to pump on the bottom side as you see Kwos kind of shifting over to counter that. And Kwos out with a couple drones now. Just a few tactical drones to deal with those Desolators potentially. I really like these forward sentry guns from these players. Marko's going to go in and take a bite here, and Kwos really doesn't have the tanks to counter this. So Kwos now building, blocking a little bit, just kind of throwing some stuff out there, giving it to Marko, doesn't want to fully engage. So Kwos going to fully switch his army down to the bottom side and hold the top side with just Desolators, and Marko pretty much matching. Marko bringing a nice split on the top side here as well, maybe going to try to backdoor. Looks like he will. So Marko retreating on the bottom side is Kwos with a fodder advantage as well, but pushing uphill into a couple sentry guns, but Marko on the back side. Marko on the backside here. It's going to come down to who can get the more value out of their attack. Can Marko hold this position on the front? That's what's really going to matter, though. But Marko's got a few tanks on the backside. He is droned on the backside. Simultaneous engagements here. Marko now with only 3 tanks left, going for the Iron Curtain. And Kwos' army on the right side does get pretty much cleaned up with almost no offensive value. So, very interesting to see there. Marko ultimately out-tanked on the right side, but was able to use sentry gun support to hold the position. So ultimately, that split from Marko did work. Those 6 tanks on the backside from Marko were an absolute work of art. They got an Iron Curtain, they got a War Factory. So in that engagement, ultimately, Kwos did a good job of cleaning out Marko's army. But 2 things: 1, he didn't get any offensive value, and 2, Marko's on 5 War Factories, so he has another army already. He has a second army. Kwos calls GG. Marko puts one on the board. Yeah, Kwos is Yeah, Kwos is a good player. So yeah, a couple people in the chat kind of talking about Kwos's build there, kind of throwing him off. The double flat cannon was a little weird. His War Factory oil order was a little bit questionable. But Kwos is obviously top level player. So we'll see if he can kind of adjust to that a little bit. Sometimes Kwos isn't a huge. He's ultimately, I mean, he's a really strong traditional player who plays blitz. He's not a blitz player necessarily, which I mean he's top 4, but he doesn't love blitz. It's not like Kwos is like staying up all night playing blitz and hanging out, and a lot's how a lot of these guys are. So a lot of these top-level guys, like even Marko comes in sometimes in these final games and isn't really quite dialed in some cases, just because, they have other priorities. They've been playing the traditional game for decades in many cases, like Marko, and, that's where their true allegiance lies. So oftentimes you see them just a little bit kind of confused about their build orders. Maybe they don't have those reps that you would expect to see from them, but anyway, like I said, they kind of learn on the fly a lot faster than other players just because they have that strong foundation of skills to fall back on. And so Marko opting to bomb one of the dogs with his eagle. The first eagle shot going at a dog. I don't know. I feel like if you're worried about the Patriot missile, I feel like you could even go and just hit the power plant maybe. But maybe just didn't want to navigate that around. Damaging a power plant in some cases can work. It can put your opponent low power for a second. I don't know. Maybe that's not. Maybe that actually does nothing. In my head, it's cool because I thought of it. So, because I thought of doing it one game, so now I'm like, damn, that's a cool tactic. Ooh, Rocky and two eagles. Oh, and he's gonna go at the IFVs. Whoa. Oh, and that eagle gets home. Ooh, very huh. Yeah, interesting. I'm not exactly sure what Marko was trying to do. They're trying to bomb the GGI IFVs. There was 4 of them with a Patriot missile backing them. So yeah, that would have been a very, very difficult position to navigate. But Marko is ahead on Eagles still slightly here. Kwos now over to his Eagles. But if you look at the economy here compared to the first game, it's a completely different story. Kwos now with more money in the bank. So Kwos actually might catch up on the Eagles here just because you see Marko going broke. Marko's possibly putting some of his things on hold. Tons of Patriot missiles out from Marko. We've seen this from him before. This is how he likes to play AVA, even SVA. When there's an allied player, Marko understands that Eagles are the juicer. He's gonna try to anti-air as much as possible. So he gets down. He thinks that oil is gonna be for free. Kwos sees it and gets down and makes him pay 3 Eagles for it. That's tough. Now in AVA, that's the one position. Generally speaking, early game like that, like 1,200 credits for an Eagle. So they're quite expensive. And now Marko with no mobile anti-air in this position. Kwos comes through the backside and grabs an oil. And so now this is the meta, if you guys have been missing it lately at the top level. AVA, ultimately what it comes down to is they are long games, and it's whoever runs out of money. So quick reminder, you can only build 12 oils per game. Not 12 at a time. If you lose them, you don't get more. You can only build 12 total per game. Marko dives. Oh, and the 1-2 punch from Marko on the War Factory. Marko dived on that War Factory. I was like, what is he thinking? He only needed a quick hit, though. He was in and out, used the oils for support to take it out. And as I say that, Kwos repays the favor there, taking out Marko's War Factory. So now both players not producing tanks. So a very, very interesting back and forth so far in this game. But yeah, so that's ultimately what it comes down to. These guys sniping out oils can decide the game. We've seen it in a few top-level AVA matches now where one player ultimately can't build oils anymore, and he's broke, and that's GG. So, which actually was actually an accidental consequence that kind of works well because it does add an ending to the game, keeps these from going literally infinitely, which is kind of nice. The oils limitation. The oil limitation was originally implemented as a way to counter oil walking, players spamming oils into their opponent's base and then targeting them, which was kind of an annoying nuisance some players were doing. But I've actually added bumps to all the maps now, so you can't build across the 50 anyway. Does get in, grabs an AFC with a full pad. So 5 Eagles for 4 Eagles and an AFC. Not so bad. Now, a second earlier, he would have canceled out that battle lab. That would have been nice. The Elite IFV goes on a quest bottom side and does get the oil, and he's back home for dinner. Man, you got to love those Elite IFVs. They are so funny. And the way the pro, as soon as they get an Elite IFV, they're just like side quest, and they just go. They're so fast and so strong versus buildings. Very odd that they're kind of weird because regular IFVs are so bad versus buildings. It seems actually kind of odd to me that they are so strong versus buildings. In a very, very nice gap in the armor found by Kwos. Takes an oil, takes a War Factory with it. That's what it's all about right now. That's what it's all about. Eagles getting value. Eagles getting value. Ooh, he's going to get a 2-pack here. Oh, grabs for the Battle Lab. Thought he was going to try to take an oil. Might have chain reacted. That oil probably would have taken the Battle Lab. He was just really focused. I know he was taking some anti-air. He knew he had to get that Battle Lab and try to get... didn't want to get too far behind on tech tanks, which Marko is at the moment. Marko on Grizzly, still no Battle Lab for Marko. Marko has 13K. Oh my god, Marko 13K in the bank. Now a Battle Lab out for Marko. Oh, it puts him low power though. And now the Prism Tank's feasting on his anti-air. Prism Tank's a bit out of position now. Kwos gonna have to dive. Oh, but he takes out a couple of those Patriot missiles, which opens up for his Rockies. Kwos now sending the Rockies in. Marko with a batch of Grizzlies backside. Gonna try to sneak around the back door. Kwos does see it as well, so good map awareness there from Kwos to be managing that front line attack, but also keep an eye on that backside from Marko. Marko heavily outgunned in this position, quite radically behind on Prism Tanks, and then that pretty nice offensive hit there does get in, and again, Marko does get that Battle Lab. And one reason that you target the Battle Lab instead of the oils is you do need 5 bombs to get the oil, right? Whereas the Battle Lab's, 2, 3? So, you know, if you lose a few Eagles in flight, you can still grab that, still grab the Battle Lab. You might not get the oil. And Kwos again going to push in here. Kwos is pretty heavily out-rockied in this position. But yeah, wow. Wow, and Kwos now rolling through. Tank advantage coming in big. Those Prism Tanks doing work. Marko quits out. Yeah, pretty fun allied versus allied game to not come down to that game of kind of like both players starving each other out. Some of those 20-minute AVAs we've seen lately. They've actually been kind of fun. I feel like there's like a mid-game that gets a little bit slow, but it's still actually kind of fun to watch, to be honest. But yeah, that was a pretty good action-packed AVA, so that's always fun to see at the top level. Yeah, Kwos got ahead on his tech. Both players getting value with their Eagles, but hard to say there. But yeah, ultimately at the end, Kwos just way ahead on tanks. Some really good offensive pushes there up the middle. Marko trying to make something happen on the backside, trying to use his Eagles to get value, but just wasn't able to get what he needed. So switching over to Allied versus Soviet now, it is best of 7, so now we'll be swapping factions until the match point. You know the match point's coming. You know we're going to get the barn burn tonight, boys. Here it is. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling a barn burner from these guys. GIs coming from Kwos, so kind of a soft GI opening here. What's he got with 250? Yeah, you open 10 GIs, and just enough maybe confuse the Soviet player, bait a few sentry guns. I don't know, try to keep the action on the Soviet player's side of the map, which I think is so important for Allied versus Soviet, especially against a player like Marko, because yeah, once Marko gets like 5 rhinos, it's like there's nothing he can't do with 5 rhinos. GIs now, yeah, GIs just totally pulled back to a defensive position now. Doesn't even try to go into those sentry guns. Both players hovering with their Eagles. Ooh, flat cannon. Eagle makes it home. So we'll see from Marko. You'd expect Marko to play kind of a traditional Rhino Soviet strategy here. Mass war factories, mass rhinos, shove it down Kwos's throat. But you got to feel that there is a little bit of pressure for Marko, right? Obviously, Kwos is happy to slow this game down, bring it to a mid-game, bring it to a late game when his Eagles can really flourish. But Marko's going to be looking to try to pack a punch early on. And here Marko comes already on the bottom side. Kwos a bit slow to respond. Kwos almost baiting his MCV. I'm not sure what Kwos's plan is. I don't know. You know that might have been one of those positions where Kwos was trying to control group his GIs and just literally got caught with his pants down. I don't know. They're very odd, generally speaking. You know, I think yeah, blunders I guess is the word for that. Just the right place, the right time for Marko. He pushed in right when Kwos wasn't looking and was able to put one up. Yeah, this map's interesting like that. The backside, the MCV is just so naked on the backside. Okay, so now Kwos in Soviet, Marko with Allied. Oh yeah, here's that bracket, guys, by the way. Latov versus Kian. Oh yeah, that one already happened. That bracket's not helpful anyway. Anyway, you guys know, winner of this going to the championship, loser going to that 3rd and 4th place game. Both of those taking place tomorrow around 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're living in the past. You're living in the past. These are weeks old. Weeks old. I hate to spoil it for you, but it's true. If you want to watch it live, catch all the action, catch the behind the scenes, join the community, talk and chat, come over to Twitch. It's free, it's fun, it's live. GI push now from Marko coming in, and a bunker from Kwos. We haven't seen many people try the bunker strategy. Bunkers are slow, take a little bit of finesse. You gotta get the conscripts in them. Generally speaking, the sentry gun spam is the way to go. And Marko, yeah, Marko going to get a lot more value out of his GI rush here. Is he going to get this War Factory? God, it would be nice. Oh, he doesn't get the War Factory. Wow. And Kwos choosing to shoot down that last GI instead of going to the bunch of them. Interesting move. You know, so rarely are you trying to shoot GIs with Rhinos, but it's actually a pretty good decision there. So he does force Marko out. Both players put a lot of money into that. Both players now looking a little bit broke. Looks like they both were able to keep up their macro on the back end. Both players on 3 oils. So very similar builds from both players here. And look at Marko keeping the pressure on, continuing to push with GIs and Grizzlies. And look at this. Look at the patience here. Yeah, waiting, then takes out that barracks. That's going to cancel the sentry gun. And Kwos needs sentry guns in this position. Now some questionable pathing there. Marko gets in a little bit of trouble on that cliff, gets some Grizzlies out of position. And Kwos is like, all right, screw it. I have the Rhinos. I'm going downfield. Barracks now out, so another sentry gun will be coming. Kwos sends in 1 Rhino. Beautiful unit control, cleans up those GIs. So no GIs left on the field as Marko now switching over to dog fodder. And Marko, look at this aggression. What was that tank doing? That one tank just went rogue. That one tank was like, I'll do this myself. Kwos 3-6, 8, 3-6. So about even, obviously, but when it's Rhinos versus Grizzlies, that's not good. Using that higher ground, takes down the pillbox. Oh, does get caught. And Kwos gets caught shooting, I think, the pillbox? Maybe dogs. Not great unit control. Kwos forced to pull back now. Marko still, yeah, Marko holding his ground with Grizzlies. Yeah, if any player can do it, it's Marko, that's for sure. So Marko now 2nd War Factory. Kwos on 3 War Factories. Does have the money for it on 6K now. So 6K, so Kwos should get a nice Rhino advantage here. The problem is Marko is about to have 5 Eagles in the sky, and as you guys know, 5 Eagles is the magic number. That's when you can really start going to work on the oils and the War Factories. Now, a player like Kwos, like I said, you know, traditional, very strong player. Obviously, he's hanging in here with Marko, but the problem with Kwos is he doesn't play a ton of blitz, and as that, you know, and not getting those blitz reps is where you kind of get used to the weird things like the oils. So the oil Dirks, they're kind of a weird mechanic. You forget about them. In the regular game, you know, these guys have tens of thousands of hours playing the game and never building oils. So Kwos, I feel like it's a little bit sloppy sometimes with his oil builds. You know, a couple of these oils are a little bit too close to comfort for me, and especially against the allied player, he can really put himself in a tight spot. So a defensive paradrop on the backside for Marko. Yeah, Marko happy to slow this game down, camp in. He's bringing out GGIs, and he'll just keep using his Eagles here. Taking out War Factories, trying to slow him down is interesting, but Marko will be on Battle Lab Tech here very soon. 3 War Factories. Yeah, I'm curious to see how many War Factories does Marko want before he's going to make that switch. Maybe Marko's going to do it with straight Grizzlies. Who knows? Nice use of the cliff here. Oh, but the Prism Towers and the GGIs. Yeah, he's not going to find anything up there. Oh, split from Kwos on the bottom side, picking on 1 oil. Might get it. Kwos needs about a bajillion more flat cannons. Kwos loses another War Factory. And Marko, this is quite interesting to see from Marko. Marko now on 4 War Factories. He does not no double AFC, no Battle Lab, and he's sniping War Factories. And it's almost like Marko's trying to create a situation for himself where he can win this with Grizzlies. If he's able to snipe out Kwos' War Factories, keep his Rhino production down, and he's able to mass his own Grizzlies, I guess he might be able to get this done with Grizzlies. Very, very quick response to that cure-off from Marko here. IFEs, GGIs, Patriot missiles. That cure-off only gets 1 oil there. And Kwos does not have the Rhinos here that he needs. We have an Iron Curtain coming. Oh, at least a minute on the Iron Curtain. And the Grizzlies are rolling through. And Marko just won a game. No, and the Grizzlies melt. Man, I always overestimate. Like, when you saw those Grizzlies rolling in, there was so many Grizzlies. So many more Grizzlies than Rhinos. But he did dive on a few buildings there. So you saw it, like, that was a problem. Like, Marko was going for buildings, so that's why, obviously, his tanks did fall behind. So counterpunch now coming for Kwos. He's going to need to get a lot of value out of this attack. The GGI spread out around Marko's base is kind of funny. And, yeah, and look at that. Not going to get essentially anything. The cure-off is left a little bit uncontested now. The cure-off cleaning out a few oils is nice. But, wow, very, very interesting play here. Marko going toe-to-toe with these Grizzlies is very nice. But that oil, and the oil gets, oh, and takes the AFC. He gets the, Oh my god, this Kirov. I'll tell you what, I did the same thing that Marko did. I was like, oh, that Kirov's going down. Remember what happened to the first one? And then the GGIs got cleared out, the IFVs got cleared out, and I just kept being like, oh, that Kirov will die soon, that Kirov will die soon. And then that Kirov just did work. Kwos is like, hey, if it works, we'll do it again. Kwos and Marko now both on 10k plus in the bank, so now they can produce on all 4 tabs as we get into a kind of this wacky and wild endgame. And look at Kwos, turns the Kirov back around, wants to wait till he can try to support it a little bit, potentially here. And Marko still not going over to Battle Lab Tech, continuing to pump those Eagles. Oh, Marko, and now you see Marko's economy. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. What did he just lose 5 oils? Marko lost 5 oils. Look at Marko's money plummeting now as he's trying to rebuild his Air Force. And Marko now taking a big bite with these Grizzlies, and he's going to need to get some nice offensive value here. Eagles coming in. They do get the Iron Curtain, pays a massive cost, and Marko's not going to be able to rebuild those Eagles for a while here. And now Marko's splitting off, dies a handful of his Grizzlies in, grabs an oil, a little bit more offensive value, and what an absolute banger. These guys going back and forth action on both sides of the map. Yeah, it's just a tug of war right now. So Marko doing a great job controlling Kwos' Iron Curtain. Obviously, the Iron Curtain can completely shift things right now, but Marko is in trouble, and ultimately the star of this game, the MVP, was that Kirov, cleaning out 5 oils and completely dismantling Marko's economy, moving into the 7-minute mark of this game. That's not where you want to be. As an allied player, you want to have enough money in the bank to be recklessly throwing Eagles downfield. I mean, there's enough anti-air. Marko's never going to get any Eagles home again. So every Eagle that goes in is going to die, and it makes it very, very tough if you don't have the money to rebuild them. Marko does find an opening on the top side. Kwos not wanting to push into the infantry, so a good zone out there from Marko, and does find a couple buildings on the top side. Okay, Tesla coils out from Kwos and up on that cliff to get the higher range. That was a pretty heads-up move there. And Marko just, yeah, blood in the water, circling. Kwos trying to slow down this game. Now, Kwos obviously doesn't know how much money Marko has, but he knows he destroyed 5 oils, right? He knows he took out 5 oils, so he's just trying to, so you see Kwos just building blocking. He's like, dude, I'll give up this whole expansion. I just don't want to give up my MCV. I don't want to give up my Iron Curtain, and I want to drag this game on because Kwos knows Marko's broke. And Marko continuing to push in with these Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies struggling because they're Grizzly tanks. And look at that, Marko doesn't have the money to rebuild his Air Force. Now the Rhinos, the counterpunch coming uncontested now, and Marko quits out. Very, very well played from Kwos. And again, guys, that Kirov taking that one home for him. Grizzly tanks did their best. Yeah, it was an interesting move from Marko. I mean, obviously that plan, I mean, he had a plan. His plan was to mass Grizzlies and use his Eagles to snipe out the war factories, and he was going to try to get 3-1 Grizzlies to Rhinos, which is about what you need. And then he was going to roll through, and honestly, the plan would have worked had it not been for that pesky Kirov coming through and thwarting his economy like that in the mid game. But yeah, it almost did work. That was pretty crazy. Pretty good back and forth. Keskin with the Z's, you're falling asleep in the chat. That was a banger, dude. That was a banger of a match. You're looking for more action than that. You're in the wrong place, dude. 2-2, those guys. That was a crazy AVS match. So rare to see an allied player. I mean, most allied players just quickly scrambling to get their battle labs out and get those mirages out. But it was funny that Marko was like, we're doing this with Grizzlies. We're doing this the Frank way. Going straight Grizzlies. Alright, so now Kwos going to try to put one up with Allied. Going to be tough here against Marko's Rhinos. Just such a difficult position. But we'll see. We'll see if Kwos has a plan here. That's why these best of 7s, a little bit longer of a series. It's fun with these kind of players because of point to point, faction to faction, these guys kind of mixing up their strategies, giving different looks. It's always fun to see like what they come up with in between those games and what their look's going to be like, you know. So Kwos, yeah, a handful of dogs there. Obviously, you need that fodder early on with those Grizzlies. Even now, we're already in dangerous territory here. Marko could already be kind of chomping in a little bit, trying to take hits, but obviously doesn't want to recklessly be pushing into pillboxes until he kind of hits more of a critical mass with his Rhino numbers. Kwos, 2.5k, 2 war factories now for Kwos, and spamming pillboxes on that front line. I love that. Just make a wall of pillboxes as the allied player. Try to slow things down, get the Eagles in the sky. AFC a bit questionable here, a bit exposed, but I'm not one to question the death robot, though I guess I am. Eagle makes it home on 1 tick of health. Marko has an eagle on the backside, loses the eagle on the pad. That eagle was onto 1 tick anyway. Good riddance. Get rid of it, Kwos. You didn't need him. That guy was slowing you down. Marko now shifting down to the bottom side. 2 war factories on the bottom, and already the rhinos pouring out. Marko switches primary to the bottom side as well, and Kwos chooses to try to hold this expansion. I would just go back to the cliff, man. Go back to the cliff, hold the line. Prism tower on the cliff now, but there's a ton of fodder. The snipers are a little bit late, so now the snipers are cleaning out the dogs. Now the prism tower can get some value done. Is Kwos building another prism tower? He switches over to pillboxes. As Snark taught us, Professor Snark at the Blitz School of Command, Craft, and Conquery, Professor Snark says prism towers preemptively, pillboxes during battle. And we saw it right there from Kwos, that prism tower early on. But remember, guys, if you're using prism towers, you want to have snipers with them, because the prism towers, the cycle rate is so low that if they have a handful of dogs, you're zapping dogs with your prism towers, they get nothing done. Snipers with prism towers, very nice. And of course, this cliff, very juicy as well. Some nice range on that prism tower. Prism tower on the backside as well from Kwos as the Eagles start to get some value. Yeah, and Marko not out with the amount of anti-air we expect to see from him. Generally, by now, he has this, like, complete shield of flat cannons. Yeah, and I'm not sure why Marko's choosing to not do as much anti-air. He's on 9k, so maybe we will see it come now. And Kwos playing very frugal, repairing those grizzly tanks. Great idea. GIs and prism towers on the top side, but they don't have sniper. Oh, there are some snipers in that group. So Marko does lose his fodder. And now you see Kwos kind of dancing around with his grizzlies, trying to get as much value as he can out of his defensive structures. Now pumping more GIs, more GGIs. Oil goes down. Another oil goes down. Kwos kind of forced a building block here and sacrifice those buildings. Can't really rush in with his grizzlies, which is a bit unfortunate because he can't really afford. Oof. And now what is that? 6 oils. Yeah, Kwos' economy going to be in shambles here. He's got 5k in the bank, but you're going to see that number start dropping quickly. Now Marko, Marko pays a decent price, but Marko's production is huge. So when you're on 5 war factories, even if you destroy all of your enemy's army, the enemy's going to have another army very, very quickly. So yeah, that's going to be a little bit tricky there for Kwos not to get a counter punch on the backside of that. Marko bringing enough rhinos home to hold the position. Very nice. I think Marko's cracking a beer right now. Feeling pretty good about that attack. Alright, so now we do see a radar come out for Marko. A lot of eagles here trying to spot an opening, grabs an oil. Yeah, so Kwos needs to be very careful right now because Kwos, and that's smart, you know, he took that oil, it's not that juicy, but he just needs to bomb whatever he can without losing eagles, and Kwos loses another oil, you guys. Kwos on 1, 2, 4, 5 oils, 6 oils. Yeah, he's rebuilding nicely, but yeah, we're at the 6-minute mark. Oh, and just loses a couple eagles for nothing. Tough. And did Kwos just build another war factory? He doesn't have the money for that. Huh. Battle lab now for Marko. Gonna be a pretty tough position. I'm just not really sure, like, there's ways for Kwos to stay alive, but what's the winning move here? I'm not exactly sure what Kwos can do. Just not getting any offensive value. And there's an Iron Curtain coming. There's a Kirov coming. We might see Marko get in the water here. So Kwos does see a little opening on the bottom side. Going to grab 1 war factory. Kind of like throwing a rock at a dragon, though, because Marko's has 4 more behind it. But so Kirov on the top, Kirov on the bottom now. Some forward Patriot missiles forcing the Kirov out of position. Kirov now going to maybe try to route around the top side. Paradrop in the back. If this paradrop goes absolutely... Oh, never mind. Oh. Nice. Kirov grabs a war factory. Already decent value out of it.
Oh my god, what a barn burner, boys.
Legend, is this actually a barn burner? Oh, he thinks it's best of 5. Alright, everyone forgive Legend. It's best of 7, Legend. This is not officially a barn burner. Oh, Kirov goes AFK. The Kirov goes AFK. That Kirov got nice value. Whoa. Where did all these grizzlies come from? Oh, I didn't see the other half of Marko's army. This is a really crazy amount of grizzlies. Unfortunately, how many grizzlies do you need to defeat Marko? Infinite amount. There is no amount. Oh my god, this Kirov's totally uncontested now. Kirov going straight for the Battle App and is going to get it. There's one IFV trying to slow it down. And now Kwos having some routing issues, not really enough space in his base for his Grizzlies to move. He's going to send it straight down the gut. Let's go, boys. And so the reason Kwos is pushing here is not because it's a good idea. It's because the Iron Curtain's coming. And so Kwos is just like, screw it. Let's see what we can do. Kwos pushing into the Rhinos. And, yeah, not gonna find anything there. Iron Curtain now coming. Iron Curtain blasts off. Only gets 5 Rhinos. Now going through. And Marko's going to lose quite a bit of his army here and doesn't get a tremendous amount of offensive value out of that. I don't think it really matters. Ultimately, I think Kwos is just so far behind right now that it's not really going to matter, but Dog's now coming in as well. Kwos making him work for it, bringing the GIs to the front line, calling out everything he's got. We do have an elite IFV on the backside. Going to try to snipe. These 3 conscripts are going to thwart it. Oh my god, the 3 conscripts just saved the MCV. That is hilarious. If it... Oh, I guess no, I guess it wouldn't have got it anyway. The Desolator saved it. Still banging out on the front side. Kwos getting a lot of value out of those GIs. Will it matter? No, it won't. Marko takes it home. All right, so here we go. Now, point number 6. Kwos now back over to Soviet. So far, the Soviets kind of been the winner of the day. Has Soviet won all of the Soviet versus Allied matchups so far? I'm forgetting a little bit. They both won. Yeah, that's right. They both won a different mirrored match. And then we've gone Soviet winning versus Allied. Just some pretty creative Allied looks from these guys. Pretty impressive Allied looks. But so far, I mean, both these guys, 2 of the better, Soviet players in the world. So tough to go into their Rhinos. So now we are going to see Kwos with his Soviet. If Kwos can win this, we do go on to match point. It will be a barn burner. Point number 7, where they're picking their own factions. We'll see some good old-fashioned SVS action. But of course, Kwos going to have to win this game first, and Marko going to make that as difficult as possible. So Marko now in with these GIs. Pretty heavy GI opening here. What is that, 20 GIs maybe? And a few Grizzlies as well, pushing into battle bunkers. Kwos using battle bunkers. Very, very interesting. I feel like the sentry gun spam is the way to do it. But like I said, don't question the death robot. GIs and Grizzlies pushing in. As I say that, maybe we should have questioned the death robot. He drives over the GIs. Oh, and now out of position. And Kwos quits out. Marko does it just when we say that Sov is OP. Marko takes home the last one. Allied versus Sov. Marko the final boss. Proving that he's the final boss.